We're live.
We are live. How's everybody doing?
Fantastic.
Tired.
I think we all are. Getting that time of the year we can actually take a little bit of a break on occasion.
Nice. Maybe people could start learning about HVAC20.
That's right. We can
Maybe
focus
so.
in on that for a couple weeks.
Yeah. You've been doing binge watching, right? COVID level binge watching.
I have been trying to balance my time a little bit, watch some of your old videos, old live streams, the Sandler. Just trying to absorb it all.
I hope you've been commenting on the ones you particularly like so they're easy to go find.
Yes. I was watching the, what was it, the third video that in the series for explaining the free quote.
Oh. Again?
Yeah, I've watched that one a couple times. I haven't watched the other ones yet, but I was focused on that one.
Okay, what's it talking about?
The just primarily how to use the software, how to dial it in, and what your offering should be with the different installation packages that you could put together, as well as how you could use the different the equipment packages.
The feedback I've been getting from y'all is some have been thinking about it as a quoting software.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And that's actually possibly been a barrier.
Some of the things that I was telling you about, Ted, when we were talking just recently the other day, is that if you look at software as a whole, particularly proposal software, if you want the really good stuff, you got to spend a ton of money, and people are spending money on it. If you don't want to spend the money, but you still want to, have some software, then you can use any number of things. We used to use a book, just a book, a flip chart is all we used, and for years and years. And I mean, it worked out as reasonable as any other, I guess, basic quoting software. But looking at our free quote report, it almost looks as if you could make it into something like that, some sort of proposal software. And for me, coming from a place where we have proposal software already, it looks good. It doesn't function very well, but it looks good. The end result does. I was thinking to myself, this is almost like it's double work, because I've wrote the proposal. I have to send them that exact proposal. So what's the necessity of sending this report? So when we talked about it, we had talked about how the Comfort Consult was, and what we did with the Comfort Consult was just give ranges on the prices, or not maybe necessarily ranges, but sort of, for lack of a better word, ballparks, and that were
help people get their head around the amount that they're going to be looking at, as opposed to zeroing in on a bullseye.
Yeah. And so the value for me in that is the same value it was in a Comfort Consult. in that I don't have to be on the hook for giving them a price right then and there, but they understand kind of where they're at. As opposed to I have to give them the free quote report and a proposal.
Right.
And that's, I think if you look at it that way, if you look at it that you're kind of giving them an understanding of what it costs, because even in the interview portion, we ask them, do you have a sense of what this costs these days? And so if we give them that with the smiley faces and all the other stuff, then what we've done is we've put ourselves in a position to, after asking when do you expect this, we've put ourselves in a great position to have responsibly avoided responsibility. We've done the best we could. They've got a sense of what it is, and they understand if they're getting sucky equipment or if they're getting good equipment, and what to expect, how it performs. I don't know if everybody thinks of it in the way that I thought of it as, which was it's almost like it's a proposal software. But if they do, they don't have to do it that way. It's better to do it the way that I just said, sort of an understanding, and then you can get them the price. It can direct you to where you're supposed to go in the proposals.
Jason, you want to talk a little bit about how your perception has changed?
Yeah, I mean, I thought in the beginning that it was supposed to be a proposal software, but now that I understand it better, for me, I'm using it as a presentation software.
I would like to even pivot that thinking a little bit. For free quote, what we like to tell people is this isn't design. This isn't diagnostics. This isn't consulting with regard to getting the right sized equipment for your house or any of those things. But what it is helping you come up with a specification of what type of equipment, because people don't realize that there's different equipment.
Right.
And all they know is SEER, and all the salesperson that came in before me and after me is going to tell you about is SEER. And what we're going to do is we're going to help you understand how different equipment is or is not able to do the 6 functions. And so we're going to ask you about things that frustrate you about your house. And then we're going to help you correlate those things that frustrate you about your house to the 6 functions that HVAC can sometimes do, like your car, but most HVAC can't do because it's single stage. And as you make those correlations, we're going to give you columns showing different pieces of equipment and how they match up to those with smiley faces. So what you can do is get a general idea about what each of these different columns of equipment is going to cost. It's not a bid, but it's a range, or what did you call it, Reedy?
A ballpark.
A ballpark. We're going to give you a ballpark for each of these different pieces of equipment. And one might be able to do 2 of the 6 functions. Another might be able to do 4 of the 6 functions. And another might be able to do all 6 of the 6 functions. And you decide which of the 6 functions you absolutely have to have and which ones you can forgo to save the money by getting a little bit less expensive equipment. And so really what we're trying to do is help you figure out what your equipment specification is that's going to match solving the most of your problems for the price you want to pay. And after that, I will bid to that column. And in fact, if you're getting other bids, you're going to want the other people to be bidding to that column also. because otherwise the other bids are meaningless because you're not getting apples to apples. Most of the other guys are going to bid to the far left crappy column that gives you none of the 6 functions. And so you're going to be looking at my equipment as more expensive, even though mine is nothing like the equipment that they're bidding, because my equipment does 2 of the functions or 4 of the functions or all 6 functions, and the ones that they're showing you does none. And so the point of the HVAC20 free quote process is to help a salesperson take a prospect from the point that that prospect gets handed to the salesperson all the way through to the point where you're ready to give them a quote. And it helps you work with the homeowner to determine what equipment you're going to quote. And at the same time, you may also help them decide what size they might want to specify to you by using the likely load range. And what we've done here in the likely load range is we've added some color to the range. The range shows what roughly 90% of houses of a given square footage, what the load might be on that house. I think this is a 2,000 square foot house. But, you know, and in here, and I have to zoom in a little bit, it looks like they currently have 2-ton heating and cooling, and the likely load range could be anywhere from 1 to 3 ton. And the situation is, if they're having any discomfort with 2-ton, it's because either the equipment's oversized or the house is leaky. And if they don't want to find out if the house is leaky, they'd be best off leaning towards the left-hand side of likely load range, because that's the size of the equipment for their sized house if the house isn't a piece of crap. Like the green is, these are houses of this size that are fairly tight. Whereas the yellow is, these are houses of this size that are kind of leaky. And then the red is, well, these are houses of this size that are probably a little bit too leaky and might be uncomfortable. So the other thing about this is, if they lean to the right-hand side of the likely load range, they really better want to be doing their duct pressure testing, because like in this house, that duct pressure was a little bit high already. So if they're switching from a PSC to an EC motor, what do we know about duct pressure when you switch from a PSC to an EC motor? Goes up how much? Like
roughly 30%.
Right? So if their static pressure's 6 here, it's going to be between 8 and 9 with that new motor. That's going to be a problem. So if they lean towards the green in their sizing, that's the most likely place for them to be between 0.8 and 0.5 in the duct pressure. So this is how we communicate to them what risks they're assuming based on the information that they've allowed you to gather about their house. And because this is a free quote, not a comfort consult, we don't know what their leakage is, and we haven't done a load calc, and we're not gonna do one, because we don't do that level of diagnostics and design unless we get paid. Did I miss anything in that little conversation, Tanner?
So explain it again, how you've told it to me, how you would present it to the homeowner, that if you buy this piece of equipment same for same and it doesn't fix your house, you're still uncomfortable, there's nothing I can do except replace the equipment. But if you buy the smaller size than the green and you're still uncomfortable, there's still some other things we can do. We can move into the comfort console then.
Well, right. If they buy the equipment on the right-hand side of this and they fix their house, so they move their house from red to green because it's leaky and some of the rooms are uncomfortable, and so changing the equipment didn't solve the problem. The problem they got now is they've reduced the load of the house, and that may make some of the comfort or dehumidification issues worse because now you have equipment that was a little bit oversized before and now it's a lot oversized. Or maybe it wasn't oversized before, but your comfort issues were due to the house, and you fixed the house and now it's oversized. So now you got to replace the equipment again. You got to get smaller equipment. Whereas if you get equipment that's undersized, but within likely load range, there's very little chance that after fixing the house, that equipment's still going to be undersized. And a lot of times what people call undersized equipment actually fixes the house because it runs longer. Is that how I explained it, or did I do it differently?
Yeah, that's pretty good. And the other thing is
they're safer leaning to the left than they are leaning to the right. If they're going to change the size of the equipment that they have, or if they have a feeling that the equipment is the wrong size, they've been living in that house. They know that it short cycles if it short cycles. They know the far rooms don't get any heat because the thermostat satisfies in the center of the house real quick. So they've been living in the house. They're much better equipped to determine if their sizing is off. And if they're going to change the sizing, well, you know, the odds are you're going to be in good shape if you're within the likely load range, because that's the load other houses are that are this size. And if you're going to pick a different size, you might want to lean towards the left, because if something goes wrong towards the left, you can make the house better. If it goes wrong towards the right, making the house better might make the equipment even worse.
Yep. Because the thing on this house is it was like 15-year-old equipment, and the blower wheel's dirty. So I mean, you clean the equipment, or if it was new.
Oh, so that static pressure might be way low.
Right.
Because of the dirty blower wheel. Okay. So they're way off mismatch for their ductwork. And what do we know about AC in the summertime running through tight ductwork? Is a 2-ton AC with tight ductwork delivering 2 ton of cold air?
Mm-mm.
So they already know they're not getting 2 tons. So buying a 2 ton when they know they don't get 2 ton, and they've never been getting 2 ton through that ductwork, it's kind of dumb. This is like a 1,100 square foot house, right?
Right.
Yeah. So this is, this part of the report, I think, can be improved so that people can have a better conversation about it. Really don't want people saying, oh, my house is over here in the red somewhere, and I'd like it to be anywhere within the likely load range. And then what they're going to do is just pick the highest part of likely load range. And that's probably needs more conversation than that to do a good job of responsibly avoiding responsibility for a decision that may be on the wrong side of that equation. I mean, in this case, you don't want her doing another 2 ton because you did get static pressure and you got to see that blower wheel. So she's probably already she's definitely going to be an inch with a EC motor.
And I don't know if you come across this, Reedy, but the V coils some of those are like 0.29 static going across just the coil,
Right.
and which is a lot higher than a traditional coil. But a lot of people will be quoting those or bidding those because they're less expensive. And so that static's going to be even higher if she puts same for same, just because of the coil.
Oh, goes low bid.
Yep.
And again, that's a part of the conversation you can have. You know, let's see. So unfortunately, people are going to have to zoom in to see this. Well, you know, I can probably screen share. Okay, so where were we? Yeah, so when you get down to the smiley faces, you could have that conversation about the coil, right? You could probably put it in here.
Right.
It would be dehumidification.
Right. I needed to work on that, the smiley faces, and put them where I want them, but on that particular.
Yeah,
No, I
this is
didn't
before
fully.
you started. Like, okay, so you have a dead set price here as opposed to, you know, maybe 130 to 150 a month.
Right. And no, it needs to be a range, and it needs to be a round number.
Right. And that makes sense too, right? Because so you present this and go over with them at the free quote to help them narrow in. Well, I can't afford over 200 a month, so it's going to be one of these three. Well, are any of these smiley faces important? Because if you want to save another $50 a month, we can go here and get 2-stage, you know, and maybe a better coil, so we get better airflow and that sort of stuff. And then if they're not ready to make that decision, you can also say, if you're not making a decision, what I'd like to do is go home and think about this report and then email it to you. When are you going to make your decision? They say, well, we'd like to make our decision by next Wednesday. And you say, well, then I'll send this to you by Monday. And if you want to talk about it on Tuesday and figure out which of these columns you want a hard bid for, based on thinking about which smiley faces you got to have, then by Tuesday I'll get your quote.
Have you used it like that, Reedy?
I didn't hear you. What did you say?
Have you used it like that?
I have a different situation than you do. So what I was talking about earlier is most of the time, unless it's a situation exactly like that. Yeah. When are you thinking about doing this? That's not something that I do. Usually what I would do is I would just give them the quote right then and there, because I have to give them something. So that's why I was saying what I said. If I'd understood this in the proper way, that's exactly the way that I would have used it, because that's the way I use the Comfort Console. Same exact way.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't do a good job. We've been just sort of fumbling around trying to figure out how to best use this. And this has been experimentation. And I think we're on it now. Would you agree?
I'm just wondering if you're getting a lot of people that are indecisive on which package they want to quote for.
Well, I mean, I think that when it comes down to it, you're going to have a certain sector of people that are going to do whatever they feel their pocketbook is, and you're going to have some that are going to always go for the best, and you have some that are going to go in the middle. I think if they can't make a decision right then and there, it doesn't really matter to me. But what does matter is the smiley faces and the frowny faces. Because when you think about it, if they want something better, then they're going to go for something better. And it's at that point, it's our job to really highlight, what these things mean and what they're about. If you'll go down a little bit, Ted, just right there, and that's how you do it right there. Because some people say they want good filtration, yet they're putting in 1-inch pleated filters everywhere, and that'll make static pressure go up. Some people say they want good dehumidification, but yet they're only going to get single stage variable speed equipment because Carrier says it helps to dehumidify better, which to some degree it does, but not really. And so you have to kind of pick it out. What is it that you want? It's your choice. Pick your adventure.
Yeah, well, I also think it's it's also to help them understand. Like, part of this report, I feel like, is kind of in the sense, not only does it get them to tell you what spec and to how to bid, but it also allows them to decipher other quotes. So that if they know what to look for and they can understand the differences a lot better, then they're just more armed with more information.
Mm-hmm.
So then that way, they're going to know, like, price range wise or whatever things are being offered, they can then, discern what it is they need or don't need, want or don't want, a lot easier than it was before. Because that's really, like, this whole report is just meant to help the homeowner understand the options that's being presented, so then they can make a better choice. Like, that's really the main goal of it.
Right.
You might be able to use it in such a way that you give it to them and you say, okay, so this is going to help you pick the equipment you want. And then you can go get your bids. And if you want me to bid, I just want to bid last because I gave you this nice tool and I think you should give me that favor.
Yeah. It really, if you think about it, whenever you shop on Amazon, I don't know if you do or you don't, but we do quite a bit. And whenever you shop on Amazon, they say there are similar, people also looked at similar items, and it gives you the specs on Amazon down at the bottom after you go through what the product is about and all the other stuff about it. It goes down there and says similar things about other products that people would look at. And that's no different than this, with the exception of that we've given them great understanding about, what they're going to do about a filter, what they're going to do about fresh air, what about indoor air quality, price, and, how much does this add, and is this good stuff or bad stuff? Because that's what we do in a comfort consult. I mean, that's exactly what we do. It's the same methodology. And I know you probably haven't done any comfort consults yet, but the fact of the matter is that if we can give them more understanding, it really comes down to that it's their choice, not ours. And
Right.
that's
And
what
they
we
need
wanna
to be
stay away
apples.
from.
And they need to be apples to apples. Like they're setting themselves up for making a bad decision if they go about it this way.
Right.
If they don't go about it this way, they're making a bad decision because everybody else is going to take off a thing that they think is going to make them price uncompetitive. So eventually the equipment that most people buy is all frowny faces when it comes to the 6 functions.
Let me ask you something, Jason. Have you ever sold a fresh air device besides not even an ERV?
No,
Okay.
we took one out.
What is the reason for that? How come you never have? Have you just never tried, didn't know about it? What's the...
I never, I've seen them before. Didn't know what they were. I thought there was like a makeup air or something for the kitchen.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But now that I understand it, it makes perfect sense. Perfect sense. In fact, every time I've mentioned it, everybody wants it. Even if they're like single stage people, I'm just going to buy the cheap equipment, but I want the fresh air. And so we've been working with our company to come up with a solution for that. And they're skeptical because, you know, they've been told or heard that ERVs is the way you're supposed to do that. And I know there's a whole video that explains that that's not the solution. And the fresh air makes sense. It's what people want. And but they're going to get, you know, if they're getting other bids, people are going to be saying, well, we don't do that, or you don't need that. I'll imagine that's probably what they would say.
Yeah, they are. And that's why I asked that question, because ultimately it's going to come down to you're offering something that no one else is offering. You've explained.
They're probably not capable of doing.
Right. And you've explained it reasonably. And, you know, you made it optional. You didn't make it, you have to do this. You made it optional. And when I started out doing this, all I was about was ERVs. And then I found out that the guys couldn't balance them worth a darn because they didn't put the duct in the way they were supposed to. And then I found out that they never got serviced and all this other hoopla that goes with it. And so, you know, it helped me to find out other things like, you know, fresh air scuttles and ventilating dehumidifiers. And then that opened my eyes to high efficiency filtration. I never was a UV light guy. Never. I always thought it was a scam. I still do think it's a scam.
We all think it's a scam.
Yeah. And the reason why is because it is, but the fact, the fact of the matter is that something like this, when you're going in there and you're giving them this and you're talking to them in a way that they can't see the drool coming out of your mouth because you think you're going to get a sale, and you're talking to them like an adult, it will help you. And that's the long and short of it. And
knowing Jason, I think he already had the adult thing for the most part.
Yeah, I know. I'm talking about for other people who might be watching.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm not talking about you, Jason. I'm talking about other folks. Because we have to think about what our environment is. Salespeople generally are known for being sleazy and they don't care and they're maybe a little bit lazy, or they just want to get in and get out. Maybe they're scared. Who knows what it is? But this right here, it really just puts it all in their hands, just like Amazon.
It shows a high level of professionalism and interest and care.
Right.
Earlier, Ted, you had kind of role played on with the fresh air and talking about getting a better night's sleep and things like that. Could you present that again? So we have it on tape.
Refresh my mind a little bit more.
We were talking about that the person that was wanting to go with all mini split.
Oh yeah, boy, you know. So that was an interesting situation. They wanted to do a 3-header,
right?
So, and that house probably could have, you know. So my approach was, have you ever considered ductwork? And if they said no, you say, well, I think I can probably do a ducted system for less than a 3-headed system. You guys think that was true?
Our company wouldn't even do it. They'll only do single head.
Oh, okay. So
I think it's true depending on a few things.
Okay. And then those 3-headed systems, those multi-head, they run into some control issues under certain circumstances that end up, like if you have one hot room and 2 cold rooms and you're in cooling, you're going to make those cold rooms colder because they're sort of like zoning that always has bypass open a little bit or something. So, you know, they end up being a little bit of a control nightmare. Plus they end up being indoor air quality. They don't help the indoor air quality at all. And they could hurt it because the heads don't get cleaned and they get moldy. And then if you put ductwork in, I don't know if they, you might suggest, geez, have you ever done a CO2 monitor in your bedroom? Because if you have more than one person sleeping in a small room, you can have very high levels of carbon dioxide, and that can affect your sleep. Whereas if you had a ducted system and you let it run on low, gently and continuously all night long, and the carrier systems, you can program that fan to run on low in certain times of the day. The fans, are they still 3 settings, Reedy?
Yeah, low, medium, high.
Low,
Mhm.
medium, and high, and you can set them to go from low to medium to high to off to, like, you can set timing to be different every day on those, as I recall. And so, if you go to bed at 10 on weeknights, you can turn the fan up from automatic to low, and it'll recirculate the air throughout the house so that your bedroom doesn't get high carbon dioxide. And you're not going to be able to do that with a mini split. And you're going to get much better filtration. You're not going to get that with the mini split. And we can do fresh air with a scuttle that comes in before your air filter. So it'll be fresh filtered air on a continuous basis. So you're not going to get that with a mini split. And if it's a Carrier 5-stage or Infinity green speed, we can get reheat dehumidification. So on the shoulder seasons, that air coming in can get dehumidified. And these mini splits most of them are terrible at dehumidification. So am I getting anything wrong or missing anything, guys?
No.
No.
And actually, the furnaces, the new furnaces that Carrier and Bryant have, the single stage and the 2-stage have 18 speeds, and you can program it, the fan only, down to like 100 CFM if that's what you want.
I don't think you're going to be selling the shitty stuff anymore, though.
Right.
So it's going to end up being, sort of irrelevant. You're just going to be probably doing 5 stages, and and if it comes to furnaces, if the people have 80%ers, those are great furnaces for heat pumps, because you don't care how efficient the furnace is. It's not going to run. The heat pump's going to run most of the time. So if they want belt and suspenders, give them a furnace that's never going to run.
Right.
Yeah. Which with the 80%er, I know at least in my area and climate zone, I mean, honestly, the least efficient furnace is better because it has lower heat output at the same rating. And so that's just that much less heat, that much more run time for when they do so happen to run.
A little
so
bit
on and
more
so forth.
comfortable.
Yeah, because it's like, I mean, you
And
look at
it's
the difference in that.
more robust piece of equipment too, right? It's going to last longer.
Yeah. And I mean, especially in a hybrid situation where the furnace isn't going to run, because I mean, the condensing furnaces, they need to run a little bit in order to, build up the drainage so it can actually operate properly and that such. But if it only runs a short amount of time, well, then the small time frames that it is running, it's not even run long enough to accumulate the condensate in order to function properly the way it's supposed to. And this.
Yeah, that high efficiency doesn't happen unless the equipment's running.
Yes.
And the way they're getting the high efficiency numbers out of those single stages, super high sensible heat ratio.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And that's definitely something we've talked about, feels like, on in on the show, is just talking about all of those things and how this accumulation of a bunch of little things are building up to, it's going to be a lot of problems. And so the question is to everyone else is, are you going to be the one that can set yourself up to take advantage of being able to solve these problems and avoid them? Or are we going to be like the rest of the pack and just continue to push high efficiency for the sake of high efficiency, regardless of the outcome.
Yeah, because if you get it enough high efficiency, that you're going to have to be inefficient in the dehumidifier that you put in there,
Yeah.
but, and it'll counteract
Yeah.
the high efficiency.
Yeah. I mean, especially those, the mini split air handler combos.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, when someone's considering single stage or something along those lines, I basically tell people, like, you're going to need a dehumidifier. It's just, I don't know, is that going to be one portable dehumidifier that you only use on occasion, or you are going to need an entire whole house dehumidifier to maintain your set point? I don't know which one, or somewhere between those two. I don't know what that's going to be like, but that's just the reality of these. And I mean, and it is. And as people start using, Ecobee thermostats and things of that nature, to where it's actually telling them what the humidity is. I mean, before, like old Honeywell 5000s, I mean, they told you what the temperature was and what your set point was. That's the only thing the homeowner really knew about. Everything else was just based on feeling. Well, now people are looking at their Ecobees and going, why is my humidity 65% all the time? And they're going to start wondering why this new system they just bought from you is running high humidity. And unless you were upfront with it, and unless you gave options, they're going to start
And
pointing
warn 'em.
fingers. Yep.
Yeah. Hey, we really recommend that you manage the relative humidity in this house. You're the operator, so it's up to you to manage it. And we recommend that you manage it within the operating parameters of 20 to 50%.
Yep.
Because explain what happens to the roof decking if you don't in the wintertime.
Oh, well, stack effect carries moisture, which is already buoyant, up through the penetrations in your ceiling, electrical penetrations and what have you. It carries that moisture up into your attic, and then it hits cold roof deck and condensing surfaces and flashes from vapor to liquid. And now you got a wet roof deck because you're running your humidifier too high in your basement. So the moisture in your basement rots your roof deck out.
Have you, Jason, have you ever seen a roof deck like that down here?
I had a customer just last week that needed the comfort consult that I don't know how to do yet. That they had 2-ton air conditioner on their third floor. It was only like 600 square feet, and they had the roof replaced. They had foam sprayed insulation. They had the roof replaced, and they had to replace 15 sheets up there. And they said the walls never sweated. I said, well, I'm guessing I know where it went.
Yeah.
So,
I never experienced that phenomena, what Ted just said. I've only seen it happen down here 2 times, and one was in the wintertime, and I went in and the roof deck had frost on it. And it's because they blocked the soffits and the house was leaky as could be. So all the hot air was getting in there. The attic was cold. There was no ventilation. And the moisture that was in the air, it condensed on the roof deck and froze. They had to replace their roof 3 times in 15 years. And then there was another time where the guy had a dehumidifier in his roof. And it was the same sort of story. So it's a real thing. I mean, they see it up there where Ted's at, probably way more than we do down here, but it's still a thing.
Right. Yeah, no, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Moisture. Gotta Gotta figure
It's
out how to
hard.
get moisture
It's
in the
hard
compressor.
to. It's hard to avoid even by tightening a house up if you have a lot of, if you have a wet basement floor, the moisture coming up through your wet basement floor can do it.
Mhm.
It can raise the humidity throughout the house. Like people who don't need humidifiers probably have too much moisture in their house. Like if you don't ever need a humidifier in your house, you may be at risk for this.
Mhm.
So if your house is leaky and there's enough stack effect carrying that moisture up and out, and it's going into your attic, and you don't seal all the penetrations in your attic and the top plates, you want that moisture to leak out before it gets to your attic.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. And can you role play one more time, Ted, on how you would mention or ask the client if they have a specification to bid to using this?
Yeah, so I'm going to let Tanner do it this time if he feels up to it.
Okay. And was there like something in particular you was wanting to highlight, or?
Well, I just kind of want, the furnace is 15 years old and the air conditioner is broken. So I think I probably need new equipment.
Okay. Well, now is this from like a service call perspective then? Like
Yeah,
equip.
yeah. The service tech suggested I get a quote from you before having it fixed because it's going to cost $2,500 to replace the compressor and the refrigerant.
Okay. And so what part what of the process kind of where are we at this
I'm
point?
kind of thinking I should replace the whole system. It's old.
Okay. So I'm still a little confused as to what part he's wanting role played exactly. And
Oh, he
like
wants
from
you to
what,
ask if I have a specification.
so
The
just the
very beginning.
specification part.
Yeah, the very beginning. Well,
Oh,
so
okay.
no, I don't know. Do I what kind of specification do you need?
Well, I mean, did you have any sort of specification in mind? Were you leaning towards thinking you needed one thing or another? I know some people tend to feel like they need to go down a size. Some people tend to feel like they need to go up a size. Did you have any sort of inclination in that regard?
No, I hadn't really realized that that was a thing.
Okay. Well, if I showed you a few things that will help you understand that, would that be interesting for you? Or do you just want to stick to exactly what you have? If everything stayed the same, is that kind of what you're looking to go for in this regard?
Oh, you mean things could be better than they've been? I hadn't really realized that. I just sort of suffered.
I mean, they could be. When you say you've suffered, what exactly do you mean by that? Was there issues that you had before?
Oh, upstairs is hard to cool in the summertime, and sometimes it's not all that warm in the wintertime.
Okay. And so is that been a pretty big problem then?
Well, it's one of those things you just get used to living with. So I hadn't really thought of it as a problem because I hadn't thought of it as solvable.
Okay. But if this was something that was solvable, is that something that you may be interested in?
Well, yes, it could have cost me a lot more.
It could cost you a lot more. I'm not sure.
Okay, well,
If it costs you a lot more, is it just you would just rather stick with what you have?
no, I think I'd probably rather know what the damage would be before making the wrong decision so that I feel like I couldn't afford to solve the problem. I'd rather know that I couldn't afford to solve the problem than just assume I couldn't afford to solve the problem.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. Would you like to see some just different options from the point where we're currently at? And then if you would like to, because we remember we talked about this specification, with what we're here for today, I can't really give you much of an exact specification. I can give you a range, and we can look to see where you think your house might fall as far as to where you might want to create your own specification to try to solve some of these problems. But if you're not interested in trying to figure this out yourself, we do have another option called a comfort consult, where we can help walk you through and take some tests, do some calculations, and figure out what that may look like and what that may be. But that may come with a little bit of an upfront cost. Does that sound like something you may be interested in?
I might be, but what you're telling me is you may be able to give me enough information to make decisions today too, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Is that sort of what you were
Yeah, that's
looking
good.
for, Jason? I mean, a lot of these people they don't have any idea, right? And so, I mean, the way I approach it is, usually a free quote is in business, implies that you're getting multiple quotes. And if you're getting multiple quotes, they're kind of useless if they're not quoting for the same thing. Like if you're getting a quote for a fork and then you get a different quote for a knife and then you get a different quote for a spoon, well, that's apples and oranges. So really, if you're going to get 3 quotes, you kind of want to define whether or not it's a fork, a knife, or a spoon that you're asking for a quote for, so that they'll all quote the same fork. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The way I'm phrasing that?
Right. And the free quote process allows them to pick what they want.
Well, so
You're putting into perspective that there are differences, that just because you get 4 companies to come out and give you a quote, it might not necessarily be the same exact things to make apples to apples comparisons. So that way, if they can understand that going in, because then when you throw them numbers that are higher, but you've differentiated why those prices are higher with the smiley faces, well, then it makes it more digestible to them as to why these prices may be higher. That way, they'll be looking at, okay, well, company ABC, they gave me a price for 10,000, but that's all, unhappy faces according to this. And then this same company gave me a quote for a 5-stage, and it was 18,000. It's $8,000 more, but we're into smiley face range only. And so then it's not just them going, why is this one company trying to charge 18,000 and this other one's only 10,000? Well, I'm not going with the 18,000. That's ridiculous. That type of thing.
yeah, so what we're really doing is we're saying, look, most of your bids are going to be here, but I want to find out what the right equipment for you is first, and then bid to that specification. So here's the way the equipment lines up based on the problems that you said that you have, that you got this. What you really need is load matching and mixing is going to really help you with the temperature differential upstairs to downstairs, assuming he doesn't have tiny ductwork going upstairs or something else that's obvious. That the equipment's not going to overcome. But so this is the equipment that's most likely to solve that problem. Is this a general price range that's going to be within your range? Because if it's not, then which smiley faces are you willing to give up to go down a stage? Like, which of these are you willing to pay for? Because they might say, well, I'm just getting the piece of crap stuff on the left, I'm going to continue to live with that discomfort because, the difference between the $74 a month and $130 a month is too much. Or they might say, you mean I only have to pay $50 more a month and there's a really good chance all those problems go away? Sign me up. So, okay. So if we're going to go on this third column, I'm happy to give you a bid. Are you going to be getting other quotes? And they say, yeah, I already got some other quotes. Okay. So can I see that quote? Because I want to be sure that that quote is for the third column of equipment here. And then they show you the quote. You say, well, this quote's no good because it's for this first column of equipment here. And then you have that conversation with them. And I mean, you can't fix stupid if they don't understand that they're not comparing apples to apples. I don't know where you go with that. But I think most people are going to understand that this is a little bit more like a Mercedes, and this is a little bit more like a Toyota Tercel. And if they want to get 3 quotes because they want to be sure they're getting a reasonable price, they're going to have to go back and get new bids. And the bid's going to have to be for the specification of this column. Is that a good way of?
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe I'll let you try.
Yeah, because I think without this tool, a lot of times, I mean, I've heard it in the past when I've not done a very good job. They'll say something like, "Well, I don't need all those bells and whistles."
Okay, which ones do you want me to take off? Because it will save you money on a monthly basis.
Right.
So that problem of temperature. So, Ted, we were talking about this, and you said that it's uncomfortable upstairs, and you'd like to know the difference. Now, what you're telling me is the difference in cost is more than you want to pay to solve that temperature imbalance, and so I should bid you this equipment over on the left with all the frowny faces. Is that what you're saying? Okay. And that's all documented. And now later when they call complaining because they have comfort issues, you can refer back to this and say, well, we had that conversation, Ted, about you getting this better equipment. Remember? I got this report here, sent this report to you. I got notes on it that say that you wanted the equipment on the left, and you recognize that it was all frowny faces and those comfort complaints that you're complaining about now. You've changed your mind again? You want a comfort consult so that we can really get this figured out? Because usually the next step when people call you back is a comfort consult. They're either calling to complain because they like to complain, they want to see how high they can make you jump, in which case you offer the comfort consult. And if you're offering it for $1,000, if they're just calling to see how high they can get you to jump, that makes them go away. If it's a real problem and you'd already told them that the comfort consult was the next step, then their answer is going to be, yeah, let's do that comfort consult. Let's see if there's anything that can be done to fix this. And then it, just like Timmy ended up selling brand new equipment 2 years in a row to the same people, because they did this. They picked the left-hand side and they realized that it was in fact not something that they wanted to put up with. And so they called them back and said, yeah, you're right. We shouldn't have been cheapskates. We want the stuff on the right.
Mm-hmm. Right. So the way I understand it is, somebody calls me up and it's just somebody else's lead, another company's lead. Their technician told them that they needed a new unit. And I come out there because they're getting quotes. And so I would ask them, do you have a specification for me to bid to give you a quote on?
Would you like to build one?
Right. And they said, no. So would you like to build one?
Okay,
What
this
do you
process will
mean?
help us build one for you. Is it okay if I ask you some questions? Going to need to ask you some questions to help you with that. We're going to find out which features you absolutely have to have and which features you don't need all that.
That's excellent.
I think this smiley faces thing that Nate came up with, I mean, he showed this on LinkedIn, and one of the guys says, well, why would I buy that crappy stuff on the left? And Nate said, you would buy the crappy stuff on the left, and in fact, you did buy the crappy stuff on the left, is because nobody told you you could have better.
Right. All these other contractors, especially when they find out you're getting quotes, they build the specification for you.
They build the specification for you.
Based on what they think you can afford or what they think you're going to spend.
Or, yes. And so they put you in a box trying to win the bid because you have no idea how to build a specification. So they're just, spitballing it. Everybody's spitballing it. And then people get crappy equipment because every one of these jobs is spitballed. People aren't explained what this equipment can do before they buy it. And so they don't get equipment that can do these things because it costs more. And I'm not going to propose something that costs more because then I won't get the job. People are going to just make a decision on price if they don't have anything else to base their decision on.
Right.
It all looks the same to me. It's all a box that sits in the basement. What's the difference between one box to the next? Probably nothing. So it's all based on price. If I can't differentiate based on features, which nobody even talks about features, this thing right here talks about features. And it talks about features in a way that homeowners want to hear it, because it talks about making annoyances they have with their home go away. And this is a 15 to 20 year decision. So how quickly do you want to make it? You want to be a little bit educated about it? Well, if you've got no problems with your house, maybe you don't want to spend a whole lot of time thinking about it. But if you have a pretty good comfort quiz score, maybe you want to slow down and think this through, because maybe we can make that comfort quiz score go down with a better choice of equipment. Your comfort quiz score is 23. You want that to be down more around 12, usually, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want this comfort, like go back up to the comfort quiz. This one right here. Health issues. You want these concerns about health and asthma and all. You want this to be down around 2 or 3? Okay. Well, then we better slow down and get this right. Cold rooms. You want equipment that runs more continuous, so it's delivering actually warm air to those rooms before the thermostat says shut off. I mean, if your thermostat sees 73 degrees and that's what it's set for, before the ductwork even warms up going to that cold room, you're not going to deliver warm air through cold ductwork.
Mm. Right. This particular customer thought the solution was to increase the size.
Well, that'll shorten the cycle even more because it'll satisfy that thermostat even faster.
Mm-hmm.
That's like going from a garden hose to a fire hose. Thinking that's a nicer thing to take a shower under.
Right.
Nate has a picture of a guy standing under a shower head and another guy standing under a 5-gallon bucket. It's like, which one do you want to shower under?
Right.
Well, guys, I think that breaks the hour. Thank you guys all for coming and helping me work through this. I think we need to make some changes to the way the likely load range looks and how it works. And Jason, you're doing a nice job sort of working through some of the introduction. Probably do need to polish off do you have a specification? Would you like one process?
Right.
Because we really should be thinking about this as a way for helping people get equipment specification, even if it doesn't get them to measured load. You know, if they're not going to pay for infiltration measurement, then a load calc is horse hockey, and there's not really any point of doing a load calc. So we got to let them choose the size. But we can offer the static pressure test. If they don't want to do that either, we're not going to take responsibility for matching the ductwork. But at least they can get this, right? They can get this part sorted.
Yeah.
I think this is what a salesperson should do. A salesperson should help the homeowner pick the features that the equipment has. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
So that they understand if they're going to get more bids, that they should tell people, don't quote me 2-stage, because I want that variable speed. I think somebody actually when you send the email and they read it and they look at the videos, sometimes you walk in the door and a person will say, I only want that variable speed stuff. I don't want that crappy stuff. Right out of the gate. So that those pre-emails can really help get you and the homeowner on the same page.
Right.
All right. Anyway, thanks everyone who came. And oh, look, Jason's here. Austin's here. I haven't been looking at any of these comments. So yeah. Reedy. Is Reedy still here?
No,
Yeah.
Reedy headed out.
Okay. So I think Reedy's been selling the really good stuff with the smiley faces on Free Quote. Like he shortly after we did Free Quote, he's like, oh yeah, I just sold a $35,000 project using that. So I don't know, Jason, have some faith. Give it a couple of shots. You're right. It definitely is easier. Like you're 99% likely to sell that stuff with a comfort consult. But Tanner, aren't most people reporting? Like I know that Ronnie sells basically nothing but 5-stage and green speed. And he's running a lot of Free Quotes.
Yeah. I mean, it just depends on, like, really, I think a large chunk of what we seen with the comfort console early on was we were getting people who they wanted better. And since at the time the comfort consult was just kind of the clear path to getting better, those people just got funneled into that. And so
Yeah.
that was just the natural outcome. Well, now we kind of have a newer way of those people, if they're just wanting better, they can get that, but they don't necessarily have to go comfort consult route if that's not necessary. So I feel like that's probably what's being picked up there, is you have people who, they don't want the worst. They don't want the bottom end junk. They're wanting better. And now they're just basically getting the option for it, essentially, in an actual good way, that it's not proposed in we'll buy this high end equipment because it's so energy efficient, because that's the typical sales point of that.
Yeah. Yeah, Austin. Hey, Austin, you should have joined us when you got here. I don't know. What do you think, Jason? Did we come up with a way of helping people understand that?
Yeah, I think, well, I mean, it's counterintuitive, and so they have to understand it. I think the color-coded bars certainly would simply play a role, but I think when you explain it, like the shower head or the bucket of water or fire hose, like you said, slowing it down.
One of the things that we find is if people have equipment that never shuts off, it's continuously conditioning, their comfort goes through the roof. HVAC20.com. I'll put the link on LinkedIn for onboarding. Good night, Ryan. Thanks for coming. Okay, what do you mean, Austin? Austin, why don't you jump in the meeting?
I think he was talking about the sizing of we're explaining.
Oh, he liked the way it shows up on the report. Okay. Well, I'm going to end the stream. Austin, if you want to jump in with us, we're going to have a little bit of after party right here. Jason, you can jump in too. You got the link. And thank you all for coming.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.